Hello, I'm Rachel Glennerster. I'm Associate Professor at the University of Chicago, and I am a member of the Global Education Evidence Advisory Panel, which is a group of experts from around the world, from many different disciplines, who come together with the shared passion of providing the best possible evidence to governments around the world to improve education and in particular learning. The panel is co-hosted by the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, UNICEF and the World Bank. The GEEAP is launching a new COVID-19 paper to support policymakers to minimize the negative effects of COVID-19 on learning losses and to reduce the inequality in education that has resulted from the pandemic. The paper provides evidence-based recommendations which aim to limit learning loss resulting from the pandemic. With this evidence, policymakers can decide which of the specific lessons are most relevant to them in their specific context. Today, we'd like to give you a preview of some of the findings.
Hi, I'm Professor Kwame Akyeampong, Professor of International Education and Development for the Open University and co-chair of the GEEAP. The COVID crisis has revealed just how ill-prepared education systems are for extreme shocks, as well as the short and long-term impact these shocks have on children and young people's learning. The pandemic has laid bare the inequality of opportunity to access quality education. It is important to understand the scale of impact the pandemic had on learning. If we look at school closures at the height of the pandemic, 78% of countries fully closed primary and secondary schools. In November 2021, many countries' schools remained partially closed or fully closed. Education is one of the main sectors to be impacted by the pandemic, and school closures have caused large learning losses. Many learners have been left behind and some have still not returned to school. Evidence from previous school closures shows that learning losses will have a large and long-term impact on learning, income, and productivity. How governments respond to school closures will determine how well they will be able to mitigate learning loss. An economic recovery in the long term depends on addressing the educational losses caused by the pandemic and the education system challenge exposed by the pandemic. The need to act now to address these losses is key. Our evidence shows that keeping schools open needs to be a priority. As we have said, the learning losses are huge and virtual learning has not been an effective replacement, even in those places where it is possible. There is a nervousness around opening schools, but there's evidence available on how to mitigate transmission in schools and other measures which can be put in place to protect those attending. School closures have had a larger impact on learning in low-income countries as they aren't able to offer the same level of virtual learning that middle and high-income countries can. This means those who are often the most in need of education lose out. Furthermore, marginalized and at-risk communities such as adolescent girls face further risk and long-term opportunity cost as a result of being out of school.
So what's next? How can we act to address these learning losses other than by keeping schools open in the first place? How can we help learners catch up? The first step is to understand how badly children have been affected. This will help both governments and teachers craft a response based on where children actually are, not on where we hope they are. Once governments have that data, they can use it to plan a response. Many countries have been utilizing innovative catch-up programs to help children who've fallen behind catch up back to the level of the curriculum. These programs draw on an approach that has been rigorously tested before COVID and has been shown to help children who've fallen behind. They're taking that proven approach and applying it to the much wider group of students who've fallen behind the curriculum during the pandemic?
What the pandemic has taught us is that learning happens at home. We all have come to realize the importance of ensuring that children continue to learn at home during school closures. The pandemic has forced most parents to get more involved with their children's education. But in low-income countries or in low-income households, parents typically have fewer educational resources and devote less time than high-income parents to their children's education. The pandemic meant parents around the world and across the income spectrum spent more time engaged in their children's education. This provides a unique opportunity to understand how to best support parents to provide additional educational support during the pandemic and beyond. There is evidence that providing information to parents helps them and their children to engage with education, which then leads to improved learning. Emerging evidence from innovation during the pandemic suggests positive effects from parental involvement in primary schools in Botswana and Bangladesh, although the results have been mixed in Sierra Leone. Early evidence also suggests that parents reading to children can help reduce learning losses related to school closures in kindergarten children. But more detailed evidence in this area is needed. Find out more about how schools are engaging parents and additional recommendations on how best to catch up learning losses due to the COVID-19 pandemic by signing up to receive a link to our full paper once it is published. Thank you.